It is my great honor to introduce two awesome manawahine this evening who are presenting. They're working to make education grounded in Mea Hawaii central to the empowerment of the Wai'anae community. So first I'd like to introduce Miss Sanoe Marfil. She earned her bachelor's degree in Hawaiian Pacific Studies at UH West Oahu and is a current graduate student at Kupu Center for Hawaiian Studies at Manoa, pursuing a master's degree in Hawaiian Studies. She works for the Institute for Native Pacific Education and Culture, or INPEACE, focusing her time on cultural land stewardship. Born and raised in Wahiawa, she moved with her ohana to Nānākuli when they received Hawaiian homestead lands out here. And she's found her passion in the knowledge of her indigenous ancestors. And her current research is based here in Nānākuli on the stories on olelo and how they serve an important tool to revive education and the i'i to pursue education for the next generation. Through her research, she hopes to discover stories and use them as implements to teach the hawaiian. And she'll also be sharing about how storytelling is an effective method to inform education. Ms. Sanoe.
He veke veke I ka po pilipuka, he elele o ka poni poni hikina, ka oke ka he awana au I ka ala a papa, la ia ni luna o ke kupuru o ka lani la, o ka ue uli alo nei ka ulu e ai ai, ua ue ko malama I ka honua nei ka mauliola ua o Hawaii I ke olino nei mai ka pina ka velo na kala ka hiko ia I ka ike mano mano ka ike koliku mai o ke kilo mai o ka uno ia o ka pulama a pa'a ka ipu o ka ike ai ai wow,
Mahalo nui, Belina me ke aloha ya kako pakahi a pau, aloha. Like was said in my bio earlier, I don't really have to speak about much, but my name is Sanoe Marfil and I am a resident of Nānākuli. Was said earlier, I wasn't born and raised here. Although people may think my nails is painted black and gold, my former teacher, Mrs. Kabina-tan, has brought me a black and gold lei. And so people may think born and raised in Nānākuli, but no, I traveled from the North Shore, lived in Wahiawa for a part of my life, and moved here when my parents got homestead. And so the way that we got our homestead lot was that my grandmother was on the list for many and many of generations, and she moved. She went to Florida and she lived. And so when she had passed, my dad signed a petition with his siblings to get that lease for her property, right, for her name on the list. And so he replaced her, and right after that, 2 years after her death, they called for him to get a lot. And so that's how we moved to Nānākuli, and that's how I like to claim my fame to this aina, and I call myself a resident, and I'm from here, and my roots are from here. And so my presentation is mo'olelo is education, storytelling as a method to inform education. When I moved to Nānākuli, when I came here, I didn't want to go to Nānākuli High School. I fought with my dad, and I told him, just let me get a G, let me stay at Leilehua, let me get an education there, and I will get up early, I'll catch the bus, don't worry about me, I got it, right? And he said, no, you're gonna go to the school that's on the homestead, Nānākuli High School, you're gonna be on Golden Hawk, you going to Nānākuli. Tita, hana mai kai. Okay, wait, this is a disclaimer. I'm sorry, I have my 2 kids here, so I might have to stop in between my presentation and correct them as they sit in front of me. So that's just a disclaimer. But So I fought and fought with my dad, but he said, no, you're gonna go to Nānākuli. And so when I went to Nānākuli, I loved it, right? I went with the thinking, there's so much myths and so much stereotypical ideas about what Nānākuli is, what Wai'anae is. But when I went there, oh my gosh, I was able to make friends really quickly, get along with the teachers, get a good education. I excelled in my work, and I was able to excel at that school and be where I am today because of that school. With that being said, I am where I am today because of these 3 children and my husband. So this is gonna be the only part I might get emotional. But so this is my husband. He's raised in Nānākuli. He wasn't born and raised in Nānākuli, but raised in Nānākuli, moved here as well when his grandparents got homestead. And then we met in high school. And so after high school, he went off to college at UNLV. I went to the University of Hawaii at Manoa. But we still stayed together. And from that relationship from Nānākuli High School, we now have 3 beautiful children. Mali is my oldest. She is a product of the Punana Leo o Wai'anae right here. After Punana Leo, she went up to Kulakaiapuni o Nānākuli. After that, she went to Kulakaiapuni o Waiau, and she's currently a 7th grader at Kamehameha schools. My middle child who is here today that joined us for the Oli is Sanoe Marfil, and she is a 2nd grader at Kulakaiapuni o Nānākuli. And my youngest is a kindergartner. Look how excited she is. Her name is Mahina Marfil, and she is in kindergarten at a school called Kapapahana Maili Kukahi. And so we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go on in our presentation. But it's because of my strong foundation in ohana, in family, that I am where I am. And so a little bit about my journey, my educational journey. After high school, I went to the University of Hawaii at Manoa. Didn't do so hot. I wanted to major in nursing. I thought, oh, I can do nursing. My mom worked at Queens Medical Center. I was interested in that kind of thing, and so I said, oh, I'm gonna do that. Well, I took 2 classes, first semester, freshman in college, chemistry, failed it. Failed chemistry. And so I went remedial, I did the summer classes, went back, tried to take the higher chemistry, failed that too. And so I told my mom, you know what, maybe I can't do nursing. Maybe nursing isn't for me. And so after the university, we were having like financial problems, right? College is expensive. I'm the first child from 7 kids that have gone on to college. Youngest of 7 kids. I have 3 older brothers and 3 older sisters. So college was expensive. So my dad asked if I could come back home to the community college. And so I said, okay, I will. I'll come back home to the community college. Grades wasn't so hot. Financially, we wasn't making it. And then I got pregnant with my oldest child. And so more so, it was like, okay, I'll go to Leeward. And so at Leeward Community College, I was able to finish an AA degree there. I had my first daughter already, right? And then I had gotten pregnant at the completion, at the start of my bachelor's degree around there with my second daughter. And so then again, I thought, maybe college isn't for me. Maybe I shouldn't go and pursue a bachelor's degree. So I'm gonna stay home a little while, raise my kids, work at Nānākuli Elementary as the account clerk there, and stay there. I'd be able to flex my schedule, raise my 2 babies, take them to keiki steps, be in their lives, interact with them, and those types of things. So that's what I did. And then I thought, I think I can do this, right? I think I can do this. So I went back to school. I went back to the University of Hawaii, West Oahu. Closer to home, Pro City, I think I can handle. So when I went back my first year, I took a couple classes. And at that moment, Kalehua and I had already had a relationship through the Punana Leo. And coincidentally, she is a cousin to my husband, and we met at a family reunion. And so anyways, I tell her about school, and I tell her she should go back. And so she enters at West Oahu. And so we go to West Oahu together. We take classes. We graduate together. And at that moment in time, we have 3 kids between the 2 of us. She is a kahu full-time at Punana Leo Wai'anae, I am working with INPEACE because at INPEACE I was able to take care of my babies, and then they look for people from the community to work for them. And so they offered me a job. And so I said yes. And so I'm working, I'm going to school and trying to take care of my kids, right? And so I finished my bachelor's degree with the intent of going on to get a graduate degree. But I can tell you that I wouldn't have been able to do it without the help of having someone by your side, right? So when you want to just scream and shout and have somebody talk you out of not writing your paper that is due the next morning, right? Kalehua was the one that helped me through that process, and she was the ear that I needed, because if I was talking to my husband, he would be like, see, I told you cannot do all of those things. You should have just stayed home, right? Right? So it's really that pilina that her and I have that allowed me to make it through. And so now we embark on this journey at the University of Hawaii Manoa at Kamakakua. We both got accepted to the School of Hawaiian Studies. Big change, big difference in terms of University of West Oahu, right? Pro City, kind of intimate. We know a lot of the kids, to the University of Manoa, right? And although I went there way back when I was on the good track, right? Good girl, graduated from high school, went to college. When I went there, I still, now that I returned, I still don't know too much, right? I didn't know too much. I went there thinking all these things, but I got different perceptions of what was really going on at the university. But again, with the relationship that Kalehua and I have, I'm able to stay there. I'm able to go to school. I'm able to continue my full-time job. I'm able to take care of my kids. And so that allows me to feel like I can do it, right? People say, oh, Sanoe, how do you do all those things? Well, I call up Kalehua every day and grumble to her about, I gotta do this, this, and this is due. And so really, that's what I want to emphasize to you folks, is that as moms, it's hard, but it's not impossible. As employees of a company, it's hard. It may be impossible because they don't give you the time off, right? But if you are able to work it out with your employer, then it's possible. You want to work for somebody who values your i'ini, or your desire to get an education. And so that's another point that I want to make. How do you? Oh, let's see. Thank you, Christy. You would think with all the PowerPoints and papers that I read, I know how to run the computer, but really I don't. I don't. And so one of the things when I left Nānākuli High School, right, I thought to myself, geez, I really wasn't taught too much information about Nānākuli in general, right? And so I was there for 3 years, my 10th, 11th, and 12th grade year. And I did a lot of things. I was in peer education, I was in peer mediation, I was in student government. I did a lot of things. And I was in Hawaiian language. But one thing I didn't learn is what Nānākuli meant. What was the meaning of Nānākuli? And so I posed that question to you folks. And I know you guys see some words up there, but tell me if you folks, anybody in the audience, knows the meaning of Nānākuli. And just say it out loud.
Something about the knees.
About the knees, right? Auntie Erin, you have any?
Yeah, I just saw it in the dictionary. I think it said look to your knees.
Look to your knees. Yeah.
Was it something about not enough water and being embarrassed and not being able to give, so you would look down because you didn't want to acknowledge that you didn't have the water?
Right. And so all of your answers is correct, right? It's bits and pieces of what Nānākuli means. So if you look at the word nana, it means to look. And if you look at the word kuli, it means your knees. And so to look at your knees. But there's many stories that go to that, right? So one of the stories is that in Nānākuli, the water was scarce. There wasn't enough water. And so that meant that the food was scarce, right? And so when we had people come and visit our aina, we didn't have anything to give. And so what would we do? We'd look down because we were ashamed that we didn't have anything to give, right? That's one thing I learned. That's what most residents will tell you. If they have some kind of inkling into what it means, that's what they're gonna tell you. When I was researching Nānākuli and talking to elders and kind of getting a better understanding of Nānākuli, I got some other stories, right? So if you look up here, Ka'o Pula Pula, he was a kahuna. He was a kahuna frequent to this aina, to Nānākuli. And his chief was Kahahana, right? And so Ka'o Pulu Pulu was tattooed knees down. He was tattooed knees down. And so there is mo'olelo that says that because of his kakao, this is in honor, Nānākuli is in honor of him. That's why it was named that. That's one mo'olelo. Another mo'olelo that is oftentimes told by Anake Kapaku, yeah? Resident of Nānākuli, born and raised in this aina. She says different. I was at a community event and I was talking story with her and she told me, I'm gonna tell you this mo'olelo. I said, oh, okay, auntie. And she said, Nānākuli, that's not the right name. And I said, oh, what is the right name? And so she said, it's supposed to be Nānāku'ule. I said, how did you get that? And so she said that Maui, the demigod that is famous for this aina, right? Pu'eheleakala, his mom is Hina. He had two sisters, Lualuale and Nānāku'ule. And Nānāku'ule, there's different spelling to it too. But those are his two sisters. And because Lualuale is an ahupua'a here on this coast, she believes that Nānāku'ule should have been the correct name for Nānākuli. Yeah? And so I said, oh, interesting, because I've never heard that before. I've never heard that mo'olelo. And so I take it with, anything anyone tells me and shares with me, I take it to heart, and I believe that I was meant to hear it. And so the last mo'olelo is kind of naughty. And it was my kumu. It was my kumu who taught me. And so she took us on this huaka'i that showed us some site names, right? And so we're sitting at Princess Kahanu. We're sitting across the street. And she's telling us, look up at the mountain. Look up Mauka and tell me what you see. So I'm like, the mountain is what I see. Like, I can't see the shape, right? And so she says, look good, look good. And so she tells us this story. And she says that she heard mo'olelo that Nānākuli should have been Nānaika Ule. And ule in Hawaiian means the male's genital, the male's ma'i. And so I had to laugh, of course, right? I was like, who would name their place after that, right? Like, no, I don't think so, right? So I had to laugh. But when I share that story with people, that's the only story that they remember. They only remember the last story of Nānākuli. And so my point to this simple word, Nānākuli, is that there are many stories that are connected with one word, right? Many stories. And the ability for us to continue these stories is so important because Wahia na kupuna, according to our elders, a'ole pau ka'ike makahalau ho'akahi. Not all knowledge is learned at one school, right? And so we need to be able to be open-minded when people tell us a different story, right? We cannot be like, no, that's not what I heard. What you said was wrong. We can't be like that. We have to be able to listen to everyone's mo'olelo and be able to accept it in a way. Which brings me to my research. So at Kamakakuokalani Center for Hawaiian Studies, I wanted to look at stories that haven't been produced on Nānākuli. I wanted to look at the importance of stories because I believe that, and studies have shown, that kids excel when they are able to relate to stories. That kids excel when they're able to learn about their culture. That kids excel when they are able to learn their language. And so I believe that through my research, I am able to make that happen. And so when I'm thinking, when you go to the university, your first class, they tell you, okay, what is your methodology? I'm like, nice, what is my methodology? I don't know what a methodology is, right? And so you take all these core classes for your master's degree. And so when I came out of taking all of my core classes, I thought about story and I thought about having a place that is culturally responsive. And so there's a methodology called culturally responsive schooling. And my other methodology, which is story. And so I believe that these two methodologies can interchange, they can marry, right? So if we're talking about story, it will affect culturally responsive schooling. And if we're talking about a culturally responsive schooling, then we can use story. And so those are my methodologies. Those are the two tools that I will use to provide evidence that what I'm saying is correct. And so what my thesis is that through culture and language, you are able to inform education and increase educational opportunities for children. Okay, that is my thesis. That is what I will be writing on. And the way that I'm going to be doing this is through a kind of study group. And so at the university, there's like our IRBs that you have to sign, and you have to get permission to get all these people to agree to what you want to do, right? And so what I do in my work hat is I work with students and I teach them about culture and language. And currently, I work with the Cultural Land Stewardship Program with INPEACE. And so I create outdoor classrooms for kids to come outside and learn and get hands-on learning. And we are able to target the kinesthetic learners and the kids who have a hard time in the four walls of a classroom. And Mahina, thank you. And so what I do there is I work with teachers, I work with community members, I work with anybody who is interested to allow them space to come out and use the outdoor classroom. Now, I'm working specifically with a group out in Wai'anae, at Wai'anae Intermediate School. And so in discussion with my professor, my chairperson, we were really discussing how that's gonna be if I have to get every parent to sign an IRB and get every student. And so then we thought about just a focus group, a handful of kids that I could work with, and I could take them and all of the data at the beginning when I start my program all the way to the end. And so when I say all the way to the end, I say a period of 6 months, okay? So that is the option that we're looking at, taking a handful of kids and using them as evidence to my thesis. The problem is the IRB process is 2 months to even get them to approve it and that whole process. And so now what I'm doing is I'm doing an anonymous, like I know the kids, I'm working with them, but I'm not giving names, I'm not giving the gender, those types of, no, I'm giving the gender, I'm not giving like birth dates and those types of things. So it's gonna be real brief in that I don't have to do the university paperwork. I can still use my data, but I won't be able to say John Doe, this, and this. Yes, Ileana.
What is IRB?
You would ask, I don't know what it stands for, but I know that it's a process that you have to go through in order to get a physical, what is the word? Ileana knows the question, the answer to the question, but a physical person. A test subject is the word.
Oh, IRB is just a place, like if you wanted to research and it's in university, you gotta ask them for permission. So if you wanted to go into like a prison, that's special kind of permission, it takes longer. If you wanna work with kids, that's special kind of permission, like vulnerable populations. But if you just wanna ask anybody questions, you still have to ask them permission. So that they can make sure that you're not asking rude kind of questions or things that may cause potential harm to people.
And you still have to, like, if you're talking to someone now, right, and you haven't done the IRB process, all the information that you talked about, you cannot use. You cannot use any of that. And so that is real critical in writing a thesis. Now, some people don't even do an IRB process, in that what they do is they do a lot of research, right? A lot of books, and some people go down to the bureau. But for me, that's the process that I'm gonna take. That's how I'm going to go through with my thesis and write my thesis. And the stories that I'm looking to talk about is stories that are pili to the ahupua of Nānākuli. So does anybody know the names of the different pu'u in Nānākuli? Does anybody know one or two? And don't look at the things that is posted up at Kamehameha schools. Anybody know it? Mauna Kapu is one. Manawahua. Yep. Manawahua. Who else? Palikea. What is the one right out here? Yep. Heleakala. And there's one more when you're coming in. One more. The first one that you're going to hit. Black Rock, no. Fire. Piliokahi, very good. Yay, yes. So those are the 5. And then there's 2 streams in Nānākuli. Can you give me the names of the 2 streams? Uliava, yep. That's one. Second one. Oniniwai. Also known as? Nānākuli Stream is also known as Nānākuli Stream. And so those are the 6 areas that I want to do mo'olelo, that I want to talk about. And so my tactic, or how I'm going to approach it, is I'm going to look in Native Hawaiian newspapers, Nupepa, and I'm going to look for stories that are pili to those names and translate that and use those as tools to provide education for students here on the coast. That's basically what I want to do. And I want to do it because of all the things that I said before, right? Everything, my whole journey, my kids that I have now, the work that I do in the community. But this stood out to me. So he is a scholar. His name is D.T. Goldberg. And he said, primitive people could not imagine, produce anything of value, and we did not know how to use land and resource. And so there are many, I cannot stress to you enough, many scholars that say the same thing in different words. Same thing in different words about our people, right? About Native Hawaiians being unintelligent, about Native Hawaiians being this and that, and we cannot amount to anything. This Goldberg scholar goes on to say he don't think we really was human. He think we was maybe half human. Where does he live? He's probably Maka already. He probably passed away already, right? But these types of scholars have been the voice of our people for so long. We begin to believe that we cannot amount to anything. We begin to believe all of their lies and all of these false images that they uphold or that they continue to write about. And so I believe that in my thesis and the work that I do, I can debunk that. I can be able to provide evidence that will say, no, because of this. No, we knew how to use our land. Guess what? You guys are learning from our systems that our kupuna did a long time ago. You guys are only trying to learn it now when we did it years and years and years ago. And so that's another push. That's another drive for me. That's why I want to do what I do. And I kind of talked about it a little bit, but my employee hat is at the Institute for Native Pacific Education and Culture, better known as INPEACE. And so we have 3 bucket areas. We have early childhood education, workforce development, and cultural land stewardship. I am the director, the program associate director for cultural land stewardship, a program called Kupu. But I want to backtrack. My kids went through Kiki Steps, so it's a family-child interaction preschool program. Kulia Ikopono, or our workforce development program, looks for community members like yourself and asks, do you want to go to college? Do you want to become a teacher? They ask those types of questions to community members. And if the answer is yes, then they help you with that process. And so INPEACE as a whole works like that. For me, I was fortunate enough to go through Kiki Steps, then go through Kalama Education Academy, right? Because I went back to school, and now I'm in my position in workforce development, in cultural land stewardship, or outdoor classrooms is what people like to remember me by. And so I build outdoor classrooms, like I said earlier. And these are some of the schools that I work closely with. At Nānākuli Elementary, we have an outdoor classroom. We're there every 3rd Saturday of the month. This past Saturday, the 15th, we were able to help Hapa Farms build 2 aquaponic systems for the school. And so that way teachers are having more tools. They're getting more tools in terms of STEM, right? In terms of core standards. They're trying to beef up the educational levels and provide different opportunities for teachers to teach their students. At Kapapahana Ma'ili Kukahi and Punana Leo Wai'anae, I'm a parent there, or I was a parent there. And with that group of families and that group of students, I'm able to go and talk stories with the kids, Makolelo Hawaii, talk about stories that they learned, and they share with me stories, right? So my kids can come home and tell me about Kaiona. Kaiona. How many of you guys can tell me who Kaiona is? You can't answer, Kwa. Navahine, you cannot answer either. Kaiona, anybody? A'ole? Aye. How is she famous? What is she known for? That was a question to you. You want to pass it on to somebody? Sure. Anyone? So she frequent our mountains, Ka'ala, right? She frequent there. The thing about Kaiona is that she cannot see. She was blind, but she could feel. She had senses. Her senses were super, super strong. And so when she could feel people lost in the mountains, she would call her Eva birds, or she would call birds to help these lost individuals from the mountains back to safety. So that's important. That's an important mo'olelo that our kids should know. It's important because, one, Kaiona is from Ka'ala. Ka'ala is where? Yes. It's important for our kids to be able to see where Ka'ala is, right? So at Wai'anae Intermediate, I tell this story, but I'm not showing them a book. I'm not showing them, here's a picture of this person. Her name is, that's not how I do it. We go outside of the classroom. We look at the mountains. We imagine Ka'ala, right? Because you cannot see Ka'ala from Wai'anae Intermediate, but we imagine. And so the kids are fascinated. They're engaged. They're wondering, wow, how did she do that? She cannot even see, right? And so those types of stories is what is important to us as a people, to our community as a people, and to the lahui that are to come. And so I want to close. I don't know if I'm talking too much. It feels like I'm talking way too much. Way too much. But this is what mo'olelo means to me. Mo'olelo means these things to me. And so I believe that we carry different mo'olelo with us as a people. For me as a mother, as a student, as an employee of INPEACE, as a daughter, as a sibling to 6 older siblings who no listen for nothing. I carry many stories with me. But what I want to do right now is I want you guys to think about what stories you carry with you and how our stories relate to each other and what stands out to you and what really resonates with you from that story. And if we could do a quick activity and do a kind of a pair share. So if you can turn to your neighbor, get into partners of 2 and share. I'll give you guys 2 minutes. Share your story and what you're thinking of. And then when I call 2 minutes, then you can have your neighbor, you guys can switch and your neighbor can talk or you can listen. Okay? Any questions? Ole? Yes. Anything that resonates with you that you feel in your na'au that you want to share.
Mommy.
Okay, so do I have any volunteers? Any volunteers that want to share what you folks talked about and a story that you hold? Yeah, Auntie, you have mana'o?
I work with many young people. I was there, I wondered why all the people what they need for and why. And I had no research to find out. I know that at St. John's Road, this means for a man who used to own the place, and then all of the street names are people names. I wonder who are these people, who's got the name, who's the name. But there's no issue. I don't know how to find out.
Thank you. Anybody else? One more person who'd like to share the story that you folks shared. Go ahead.
I born and raised here. My aunties lived here for over 60-something years. From what I heard, Nānākuli Park is called Kalanianaole Park from the old timers. That's what I was told. Yeah.
I've heard that same story. Anybody else have heard that same story? Yeah, there's pictures. In fact, if you go to the archives, there's pictures that will show the sign that was once there. Boboy, Ka'ava, Paul, right? This is English. I call him Boboy, I'm sorry. But he shared when he was talking one time about a bridge that used to come over right here. I never knew that. And so that's the power of stories, right? The power of stories is that it connects us, right? Because you told the story of Kalanianaole. He knows it, I know it. You told the story about Maili, maybe some other people. Kupu Oya, she's a native of Maili, and maybe she knows some of those stories. So we can make connections, we can learn from each other, we can be able to carry on histories that our kupuna had and have. We just have to be the stewards of that knowledge. And we have to be able to tap into the resources and talk to the people who have those knowledges or research the books and the places that have those knowledges. And so I encourage you folks, I encourage you to continue to tell your stories, to continue to search for those stories. If you are interested in anything, if you want to learn more, continue to do that and continue to walk in that path. Don't ever believe that you can't find the answer, right? My auntie always says that when she does genealogy, the names that come up, if she doesn't find any information on them, she'll put it away for a little while. She'll put it away for a little while and she'll come back to it in about a month, and then instantly she finds information on that ancestor. And so I encourage you folks, I thank you folks for listening to my presentation. And oya vale, mahalo. Any questions? They said, of course you have a question.
Can you tell us about the chant you did in the beginning?
So it's a chant that I learned from the Punana Leo, right? The Aha Punana Leo. And we learned it there. I learned it as a makua or as a parent, and my kids learned it as students there. But that chant is a way to ask for knowledge. And we do it at every single meeting. We do it when we go out into the greater community and we meet with other Punana Leos that are the Aha Punana Leo is a statewide organization, right? Revitalizing the Hawaiian language. And so when we meet as a bigger hui, we do that oli. And so it's to ask for that ike. It may be more than that. Kalehua, any he mauma na oko?
So it is an oli that was written by Larry Kimura, one of the original founders of the Aha Punana Leo, and the air or the melody that is chanted in is from Kalena Silva, and it's part of the olelo no ea wau Hawaii ke oli no nei mazma. And it's talking about Hawaii being in an era of enlightenment or knowledge. And so I learned it from my kumu na ilima gaisen up in UH Hilo many years ago. And then when I became a parent in the Punana Leo, then we did it in the Punana Leo. So it's something that we do to kind of center ourselves. We do it every day at our preschools, all 11 statewide, plus our main office in Hilo. We do it all at 9 o'clock so that we can center ourselves in spirit collectively across the state. Other schools use it, other kaiapuni use it, Āina-based does, Wai'anae does, Nānākuli does. It's kind of an oli that is laha.
Any other questions? And or oli thinker, how can yes.
How close are you to graduating with your master's?
So I'm complete with all of my coursework. But because I graduated from the University of Hawaii West Oahu, I have 4 prereq classes that I have to do in order to graduate. There's actually, you even have to have 4 years of language. Luckily, I did that at West Oahu. So I have 2 more classes, and I'm taking it this semester. So 2 more classes, post chiefs and Mitts of Hawaii, and then I'm done. I'm hoping, I would have loved to graduate in the spring, but I would have to have been done with my thesis already. So I'm looking to graduate hopefully in the fall. Next semester I will just write. I will do all my writing and all of that, and my proposal will go in at the end of this semester. And you know, you do revisions to proposals and they ask for this and that and this and that. And so after the proposal is finalized, my thesis is finalized, and I'm hoping to graduate in fall. Oh, thank you. How did I pay for it? Well, I work. No. I actually get scholarships to go to school. And so Kamehameha Schools is gracious in that they pay for me. They pay me, or they give me scholarships to attend school. This year I lucked out. I stress all the time about my grades, about my work. But I got a merit-based scholarship from the University of Hawaii for good grades because I had a 3.8. So yeah. And you know, when I graduated from high school, because I had good grades, there was a lot of money available. And so scholarships, when you put your mind to it, you write your essays, you do all of those things, there's opportunities for us to be able to get educated for free, right? For free. Yes, Ms. Kabina Tan.
Sanoe was one of my top students.
Oh my gosh, she is going there. Okay, sit down.
That's why I came here today, to see what she was going to say and to make sure she wasn't talking stink about me. But I remember her in high school. She was so brilliant, so smart, and just such a great leader. And I remember one comment she told me one day was, I said, you know, what college are you going to? And she said, I'm not going to college. It's too much stress. I'm gonna work as a clerk like my mom. And I was like, what? You know. So I'm so proud of her. You know, so proud of her, all her hard work.
So funny. I'm never ever letting her in the door again. But yeah, I can say that Mrs. Kabinatan, and she knows it too. She was like my mom at school, right? Yeah, I had two teachers that were like my parents, and so it was her and it was LaPrel Burgess, and the two of them took good care of me, which is one thing that allowed me to, or that inspired me to go to school, because you're gonna see them and they're gonna talk to you about this, and this, and they just always made time for me. And it was more than just the books, and it was more than just class. It was the opportunities that I had to grow from them. Because believe me, her and I, we used to, like, we would put on big events, and then after the events were done, it would be like, and Sanoe, you did this, and you know, you gave me attitude at this time, and this, and this. And she would really, you know, help me grow in that she would point out everything I did wrong. But it really was good for me, and it really helped me. So thank you. I love you. Thank you. Any other questions? Ole? Mahalo again.